Raising our Appalachian voices. What an exciting conversation to have. Now, when I first heard this topic, the first thing that came to mind was me as a little boy and the moment of hearing the tone of raising my voice and what that might mean, especially if I was in church or in school, because I know that I was going to be met with a strong conversation when I got home. And while I don't think that's the topic for this evening, it is something to remember. Also, the next thought might have been, well, what if this is an opportunity for us to collectively agree on now is the time in which we want to expel stereotypes, things about our culture that we don't believe, but the world around us believes and we hate to be remembered and reminded of. Now, personally, I get to travel quite often and meet people who've never heard of Appalachia. They certainly couldn't find it on a map. And while they get introduced, they ask the questions we all know. Is that the way y'all really dress or live? Is that the music you really like? And while it's often fun to speak in our slang to them and they love to enjoy our voice and our dialect, I don't believe that's really the conversation for tonight either. In fact, I believe that the moment that we think about raising our voices is actually something much more important. And it's not just about the what, but it's also about the why. Personally, now I work a lot in economic development. I'm an entrepreneur myself, but I find myself now really passionate about how to be a part of the future of our region, the future of Appalachia, and how we see things grow and develop for our future generations. It's an incredible time. If you consider the last few years, we're in an unprecedented growth. The booming housing markets, the demand for tourists and relocation information coming from all parts of the world, from all demographics. It's a really exciting opportunity and one that we've long dreamed of when we think about what the future may look like. And while that's exciting, I actually believe that what people are looking for is not that they've just found the best kept secret that they just learned of in Appalachia, but I think it's deeper than that. I think what people are looking for is the value of our culture. It's something that is needed. It's something that the world is looking for, and it's something that's time for us to be confident in stepping forward and delivering it. My name is Heath Guinn. I'm an entrepreneur from Appalachia, as you might have guessed, born and raised in Johnson City, Tennessee. My story is actually quite relevant to this topic, as I knew from early on that I was going to be a business owner and an entrepreneur, mostly because I knew I'd be totally unemployable. True story. But as I got started in high school and in college, really developing my business in technology and media, I really started to have the desire to want to build my business where I lived. I was already doing things and having opportunities to travel the world and create projects and have all these interesting conversations, but I loved where I was from. And unlike most people that were in my peers, most talented people more than me, they were typically relocating. Entrepreneurs were historically moving away to find resources and access to things that we just didn't have. And so I distinctly remember a conversation, what I later became to know was my earliest mentor, and where I said, how do I do what I'm doing but stay here? And the willingness and time that he took for me at that moment was so important and was ingrained in what I believe is now part of my purpose in life. Now I find myself on the other side of this story. Now I am back in Johnson City, and have an opportunity to play a role in leading the entrepreneurial future of our region. I'm still heavily involved in projects. I have a personal passion around helping social impact entrepreneurs, people who have developed technology or products that they want to ship out to help people in need. I'm excited to say that right now we're working with many entrepreneurs in Appalachia who have these products, and we're currently in over 12 countries and on 4 continents where people are doing projects to electrify hospitals, building 3D printed and robotic prosthetics for the neediest people in the world, and having great success. And I think that heart is also representative of what we find in Appalachia. Also, as a role that I play in the region that I live, is an opportunity for us to establish entrepreneurship, to have a true seat at the table for the future. How do we become part of the economic development and the planning? And the role in the organization that I created, SingSpace, is doing just that. Throughout the collaboration that we have with many other industries, we now are able to be part of the conversation about shaping policy, providing access to resources, and creating opportunities for many entrepreneurs who normally in the past would not have been able to do that in our region. Just last year, we have become partner of the Invest Tennessee program, and as the official partner of the state of Tennessee, $110 million was set aside for access to capital programs to help deliver capital to regions like ours for people who have really historically had trouble finding it. Now, as I think about all of these things, this is really not about me. It's actually about things that I learned throughout my childhood and as I was growing in my early career. And it really was, what is it about Appalachia that makes it so unique for me? And then also what I believe is for this moment in time where we have the opportunity to shape a future where we can continue our history and the values that we hold while welcoming in this new growth. I like to narrow it down to 3 particular values, which I'll share with you now. The first I like to call it is the Appalachian state of mind. Now, if you've been around here, you know that we happen to have a little bit of an independent streak. Some might call it stubborn. But most of that is built from a history and a heritage of pioneering. A lot of the people who lived in Appalachia early on were escaping oppression. They were escaping famine and other causes that were forced them to move and put people in a scenario in which it was die or try. And that is something that is still led on today. Now, in the moment that we find, it's a great asset because we have the opportunity to build things from very low resources. Very useful that we find that now, especially as an entrepreneur who are known for being very gritty people. The second one, I like to say, is an Appalachian state of being. To me, this connects something else that's very valuable to us. It's our heritage in the arts, in the community. The music and our creativity is being exported like never before around the world. Probably the most populated it's been of all time. But it's rooted in a community that we've always had. And that is what brings us together, whether it be in worship, whether it be in events or festivals, but it's always a celebration of our expression and our creativity. The third one, which happens to be my favorite, is what I refer to as the Appalachian state of heart. This is quite close to me, as I think it represents the most valuable opportunity that we have in shaping the future. A state of heart is actually a mindset. It's a mindset of servant leadership and being willing to help the people who are coming up behind us. It's an opportunity for collaboration in which we can step into the future knowing that collaborative efforts is actually the pathway forward. It reminds me of a story when I was first getting started in my early days of entrepreneurship. Walking into one of the very first meetings I had, meeting with, at that time, a leader who's now actually become a very, very good mentor and close friend. Sitting down, completely green, inexperienced, had almost done nothing, but in technology and media, something I was also trying to explain to a group of people who didn't really know what I was talking about. But the willingness that they had to sit with me and give me a chance at something that they didn't even understand because they just wanted to see me be successful was something that stuck with me and rooted deep. And to me, that is something that I'm so happy to be part of that and what we're creating now. Now, all of these things are wonderful and they're great, and these values I think are extremely important in our moment in time. But if we're gonna be honest with ourselves, we have to deal with some potential obstacles. We'll revert back to that moment of stubbornness and talk about what is the potential threat to us achieving this. To me, if we're gonna meet what's coming up in our potential future, something we all desire, we have to eliminate what I believe is a mindset of fear. We have to understand that scarcity is no longer our problem, that abundance truly is on the other side of collaboration. But in doing so, that there is a true trust that can be created, and that this is not something that will be too hard to overcome. I'm gonna share an example of how the collaboration worked in our region that was actually extremely important for us. This was something that we did last year. Very simple, very easy to look at project, but difficult to pull off. As a regional leader in entrepreneurial activity, one of the things that's often debated is access to resources. Who provides it? What is the capacities? Those sort of things. And most of it is a lack of communication. Us with a number of leaders got in a room one day and said, we're gonna put all of that aside. And we're just gonna look at and communicate together on what is actually available. What are we doing? We all have the same purpose. We all have the same heart. We want to help people be able to grow and thrive in our region. And if we can just stand on that principle, what can we create? Now, there was some fun conversations that occurred, I will say that. But for the most part, it was very productive, and it ended up with a very simple ecosystem map, which is just simply a way for an entrepreneur to navigate through the region to find what resource they need, where it is delivered, at what time. The result of this was extremely important for everyone involved. And I believe that the success that it's had so far is hard to deny. Within the last 12 months, keep in mind, this is from an area that has typically had low resources for entrepreneurs. In the last 12 months, we have seen this participation of 40 organizations, 24 counties, and 3 states come together to create this opportunity, which has resulted in an increased millions of dollars that have showed up. We are now funding opportunities across the region, reaching new communities and engaging with different pockets of our region that have never been involved in entrepreneurship before. It's so exciting to see the excitement from a community who once felt unwelcomed, now be welcomed into centers and be presented with opportunity and supported by this group of leaders who just came together to decide, together we can do this and we can provide something and we can all be successful. This, to me, is an example of how we can approach the future goals. It's important that we think about what are the key values in this conversation and we address how we move forward. The first thing I like to think that we need to do is we have to have the courage to agree that our story is important and that who we are is not something that we have to overcome foreign stereotypes, but instead who we are is exactly what people are looking for and need. The second thing we have to do is we have to have consideration and trust that people who are showing up with you want you to win. When all people are looking at an opportunity to win, we can remove the hurdles of fear, and we can understand that our real success lies in that teamwork. And then lastly, the collaboration that's created amongst leaders can be the key anchor to what drives us into the future and what allows us to have a prosperous and abundance for our families and for our posterity, which is truly the only goal we're all seeking. I believe this is the moment in time. I think it's no coincidence that we're seeing the demand for Appalachia and that it is not just looking for the location, but it's looking for us. It's looking for how we can play a role in leadership for the future generations and for people who don't know what to do and how we can play a role for them. As we think about raising our Appalachian voices, it's going to take us all. Will you please join me when we do that? Thank you very much.